Hello viewers, Super GT here. Now, first off I just want to say massive thank you for everyone for subscribing. 100,000, we are over 100,000 now. So can the 100,000 Super GT finally become a member of the SS? This is where that journey continues as we fight around Kyoto. 15th on the grid, but before we do anything, let's roll the introduction.
Okay guys, let's do some dancing. Let's show me my moves. Thanks for watching. I'm Frankie McDonald.
I think we might have reached a new peak with FIA intros. But anyway, here we go. Kyoto, 13 laps. I'm in the Nissan GTR in Group 4, surrounded by a load of Meganes, and that's the first thing that worries me here because this circuit has a lot of very long handling-based corners. And into the first turn, you can see the advantage of the GTR, top end speed, far better than the Megane, so already gaining one position. Now another thing you'll notice, the grid is very tightly packed, so these FIA races, this is where you meet the best drivers apparently. Don't know why I'm here, but this was a high level lobby. There were some very quick players in here. Some of them are in the top 10 overall in the world, or sorry, in the whole region. But I mean that's still very high. So I'm racing against some of the very best players here. So I'm going to do my best in the GTR. The one thing I'm really worried about as well is the tyre wear, as I've got Megane swarming all over me. Into the chicane. This is where things are going to go probably quite haywire later on in the race. A pinch point, and it has done here with the Cayman with a penalty already, making contact. So on the exit, gaining 2 positions. Looking at the inside of the Viper, someone up ahead has got dial-up internet and is swiping across the whole circuit like Sonic the Hedgehog, leaving sparks in his wake. And I just spotted someone spinning around behind us there. You see that up ahead? That guy is going absolutely mental. He's a massive distraction to anyone behind. So it's a decent lap so far. Viper looking up the inside into the final turn of the McLaren. Is it quite going to work? Yes, it looks like it is. Good move. Although on the exit, the McLaren actually gets the better traction and retakes 10th place. As a result of that, though, I am going to manage to tuck into the slipstream. He's not got the best of exits. And again, the GTR decent top end, not the best, but good enough. So once again got the inside. So, and just riding that, you can see that contact there. So just holding the inside line, make sure the car can't get a cut back on you. So just in a way waiting for that contact to happen and then accelerating out the corner just to make sure that the guy behind doesn't overtake him on the way out of the turn. So a good start so far. Solid beginning to the race, but it's a long way to go yet. You see just how close it is behind. It's very congested all aboard the Super GT train, and the way that it is here, if you make one mistake you are going down a lot of positions. You can make one mistake and lose 5 positions quite easily. As you come down towards the chicane, Brownie SV with a penalty, 3.5 seconds. The strictness is definitely enhanced in the FIA races. So in a daily race you might be able to cut that chicane going 2 wheels on the curb, 2 wheels on the grass. You try that here, it will not work. You're going to get a penalty. So you need to be very careful. You need to sort of tiptoe through that chicane. And that's the balance you're trying to find in these FIA races. Trying to push as much as possible whilst at the same time not getting those penalties. So you can push too much and get slapped with a load of penalties, and that can definitely ruin your race, especially when it's this close. So through the chicane I was worried about getting a penalty there as I was a tiny bit on the grass, and you see just how close it is up ahead. So 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th and 6th fighting in this group here, and I mean that doesn't even include the people behind. We've got literally 10 people fighting here in a train. So this is how close it is. It's gone through turn 1. Now the problem, if you watch my Willow Springs video, so it's Group 4 again in the Nissan GTR, and that track also has lots of very long corners. The problem we had there was excessive tyre wear on the outside front. Now this circuit has a lot of long lefts, as we're coming up to one now, so we can say rest in piss to the outside right, or sorry, the right front. So that tyre, as the stint goes on and on, is slowly going to die a painful death, as will my chances of any good lap times. As we go down into the chicane once again, braking just before the curb begins on the right hand side. Viper very close behind, we'll just about get through. And an incident here between TX3 Adam and TTR Benson. So Benson was the one with the dial-up internet, lagging across the entire circuit like Sonic the Hedgehog, and picking up coins, presumably. So I'm up into 9th. I've kind of profited from the mistakes of others. We can just take a quick glimpse behind. And now we can see Benson distracting everyone with dial-up connection. So that's a good sign for me. It wouldn't be a good sign if he begins to catch up and tries to challenge me, because I won't know exactly where he is on the circuit. So we can try to pull away from him if possible, although it's not going to be easy. He's in the Cayman and he did qualify well ahead of me, so he should be faster. As we now come to end lap number 3, the top 3 have pulled away quite significantly, and we can actually see pretty much 4th to 20th is in one train. That is how close this is. It is ridiculously close. So again, you make one mistake, you can say rest in pieces to your chances of any good result. So being consistent here, not making a mistake is absolutely imperative. That's my main aim as we go over the crest into, once again, the long left. I'm going to kind of throw it in. I've never really known how to take this corner. I've always struggled. And I think this is probably the fastest way for me, although probably not very good for tyre wear. Just dipping 2 wheels across the grass, and that's going to give me a penalty through that long left. So obviously that isn't the best way. And down towards the chicane, another penalty just for grazing the grass once again. It shows you just how strict it is. You literally can't even touch the grass, just a tiny amount. Otherwise you will get hit with a penalty. I'm going to try to make it 3 abreast, trying to go through the centre, and the gap closed. They shut the door on me into the hairpin. I'm going to look up the inside of the McLaren. He's going to try to go around the outside of the Lamborghini. I'm going to get the car back on him. He's going to be 2 abreast, coming down towards the little chicane at the end. Not quite though. The McLaren just bails out of that one. So we're going to keep 8th place for now. Plenty of people with penalties. So of course that was added in a recent update, so you can tell exactly how much of a penalty everyone has. The Hyundai just up ahead 0.3, the guy in front of him 1.8, the German in 5th. So we can try to make the most of the slipstream here. Slipstream very important in Gran Turismo Sport, so we're really going to make the most of it. Again, looking behind just how close it is, looking at the map. You only have to look at the map just to see how many cars there are right behind me. So desperately trying to not make a mistake. Once again, going in early, being patient mid-turn, and then back on power to get a good exit onto this section here, which in a Group 4 car, it is flat out. It can be a little bit difficult to get exactly right. We should be able to go through these S's flat, with no lift. 5.7 second penalty now, so I've got 2.5. I don't think that's going to serve. It's not like Red Bull Ring where the penalty will kind of serve itself. So I've got this tactic here of going right behind the person in front until the very last moment, then resuming the normal racing line, and it kind of puts them off on a bad line. But he actually took that quite well, did Vinnie Chris up ahead. The Dutchman with good defence at this point here. All this is doing though is letting the guys in 5th and 6th place just pull away a little bit. They're kind of eking out that gap, maybe 1 or 2 seconds now. Lamborghini with a poor run on the exit of the chicane. I'm going to pull to the left hand side, which is the outside for this little kink here, but then the inside for the hairpin. Braking just at the end of the 35R on the bridge on the circuit. A little bit deep on the brakes. Tiny bit of contact, but I'm through up into 7th position. So I've gone from 15th to 7th in the space of 5 laps. That is not too bad a return thus far, but we still have 8 laps remaining after this one. And you might be able to see there at the bottom left of the screen, my front right tyre is beginning to worryingly disintegrate. So as we go through those long rights, it's going to become increasingly hard, and this is something that you need to practice, I think. Just do a couple of practice runs. Just look how many cars there are right behind me. I can just hope they start battling now. The Cayman behind it, about a second behind at this point here. You can see I'm struggling for grip as I'm saying, this is something you need to practice. Just do a practice run on the exact same tyre and fuel use rates, and just try to manage your braking zones and your turning in points, because they do need to change as you go into the race a little bit more and your tyres begin to wear out. So the Cayman there's kind of bridged the gap really quickly. It was a second behind at the start of the lap, already less than half a second. In fact, he's right on us now. He's bridged that gap really quickly. The Cayman, a very good handling car. The GTR, kind of a good all-rounder, but it does suffer around these very long corners. So again, chicane for the 6th time. Been very, very tentative on the curb on the first apex, and a little bit more aggressive on the second and third. So just keeping a keen eye on the people behind. Now this is an interesting point of the race. Lap 6, obviously an odd number, 13 laps, so most people are going to be pitting end of lap 6 or end of lap 7. So this becomes the pinch point of the race. Now I'm going to make the decision here to go into the pits at the end of this lap, and what that's going to do is going to give me an undercut. So I'm going to pull away slightly from people, presumably, who are all on the older tyres, while I have one lap on fresh tyres. So I should be able to eke out maybe a second or two from that alone, and it will just kind of relieve me of pressure of that group behind. So I'm going to dive into the pits and dump these tyres and go for a new set. The only downside, or the main downside of this tactic or this method, is that you're going to end the race on very warm tyres. So I'm going to be pressured towards the end of the race, presumably. So down to 16th. I'm going to fast forward this lap. So you can see I actually lost out to the McLaren. So the McLaren was behind by about a second. So I think he's just fueled a lot less than I have. So I think I fueled exactly how much I needed, but obviously the McLaren doing a better job of saving fuel. So that's the end of lap number 7. So everyone else has gone into the pits. This is the really interesting point of the race, because down here in 16th we're going to gain a couple of positions back. How many exactly are we going to gain back? You see the car's just coming out of the pit lane, and I've resumed in 8th. I was 7th just before the pits, so all I've done is I've lost this one position to the McLaren. We've actually reeled in the Hyundai slightly, so you can see kind of just how much you gain. You just gain maybe a second or two. The Hyundai was a little bit further ahead than that. In terms of the gap behind, there's maybe 1, 2, 3. There's only about 3 cars now directly behind, whereas it was about a group of 6 or 7. It was a very big group, and now it's kind of split in half. So that's a bit of a relief. A top 10 is going to look a lot easier now, because there's not as many people fighting for those positions. You see there, a loose group of 3 people directly behind us, and then a gap of maybe 1 or 2 seconds back to the next group of 4. So that makes things a little bit easier. But as I say, I will suffer towards the end of the race. Laps 12 and 13 will be very difficult with the increased tyre wear. McLaren going defensive, looking around the outside. It's never going to work quite like that. So going to cut back, get a good exit. We are slightly putting the pressure now onto the Croat in 6th place in the Hyundai. So not the best outlap for him, as we now begin to sort of put the pressure on. So 6th place being on here, that's a really good that's a really good position to be fighting for, given that I started 15th. Normally in this kind of race, the FIA races, I'm happy to qualify anywhere near the top 10, and if I finish in the top 10 I'm very pleased. So if I can do that here, I'll be very happy with the result. And of course our quest to become a member of the SS goes on, and I'm in search of some strong results. My last couple of results haven't been the best, not the best results indeed. Only 5 out of the best 10 count. Sorry, only the best 5 out of the 10 rounds count. So you can afford to miss a couple or have a bad couple of rounds. But if you want to be in that top 200, you do need to ideally have a couple of scores well over 1,000. I think I've only had 1 or 2 over 1,000. So into the fast lap. You see just how much I pull up to the back of the McLaren. I'm not sure that's best for my tyre wear, but I think it's the only way that I'm comfortable taking that corner without losing too much time. So perhaps I need to do it. It just needs to be done. The Megane now putting pressure onto me, as I've been gapped slightly by the McLaren. So the McLaren just pulling away by, well, about half a second. I was right on him at about this point last lap. but now he's beginning just to edge away. Not the best lap from me, and the Megane behind not having the best chicane, so I'm going to pull away slightly. So the braking zone there, just at the end of that 35R on the ground, that does kind of become slightly earlier and earlier as you begin to lose grip on the tyres. So you do need to adjust your braking points as the race goes on, as I've kind of mentioned before. Everything changes as your tyres wear out and the car becomes lighter on fuel. You have to adjust the way that you drive throughout the race. So someone just behind there spotted a Belgian, I think it was, just diving into the wall. Not a helpful method if you want to have a good result, but that's going to help me out. So now, just 2 people directly behind, then a big gap back to 11th, as we just saw there in the rear view. So a fight for 10th looks very much on here. It may well be a defensive one, as my tyres become more and more dead as the race goes on. So the Megane now looking for a way past. Absolutely love that livery on that Renault Megane, as he's going to try to fight past me. Presumably up into these corners here, because that Megane is so good around the long corners. It just seems to have infinite downforce, and trying to keep that thing at bay can be a difficult ask. So my main tactic really is just to keep a really narrow line, just anywhere that they can't sort of nip their nose up the inside, and keep them at bay that way. The McLaren just dipping 2 wheels wide. I kind of followed him. He had a big moment, just about recovered. You see there again, getting a penalty. That is how strict it is. You can't even do that. You can't even just graze 2 wheels across the grass. I don't even feel like you're gaining, but at least you know what the limit is. So that's an example, a classic example of just following the car in front, or just watching the car in front, which isn't something you should always be doing. I think you need to always focus on yourself, what you're doing. Sometimes I'm guilty of that, just following the car in front, not really focusing on exactly what I need to do. And then I've been suckered into another, let's say about 0.8 worth of penalty, so that's not going to be helpful. He does have 3.5, the guy behind has 3, the guy behind him with 9.6. So at this point here, the penalties are going to definitely factor into this race, because it doesn't look like the penalties are serving at all when we slow down at some of the slow corners like it does maybe at Red Bull Ring. Sometimes the penalty gets served by itself, but here that isn't the case. Brownie SV deciding to go defensive into turn 1, so fair enough. I'm going to look for that cutback now. So he goes in narrow. It's going to cost him on the exit, and I'm going to get a good exit as a result. It's coming into the S's side by side. How is this one going to get resolved? Just a bit of contact. I was kind of expecting it, to be honest. I was trying to fight around the outside, and he's just about kept the position. The Lamborghini with the bump onto the Megane, onto me. I kind of saw that one coming, and I kind of just stayed in place just to ride the contact and get a little bit of a boost, rather than move across and let the Megane up the inside. So just about keeping 8th place. Things are getting really cosy now, and very cosy behind. 9th and 10th coming together at the crest of the hill and losing a couple of seconds, so that has given me some crucial breathing space. The gap now to 3.3 behind, so it's very difficult fighting forwards, trying to overtake, but at the same time trying to defend your position. So at the moment now, I don't really have to worry about that. I can just go I can just go full send on this guy. I don't have to worry about how that might complicate my defensive work. So 3.3 seconds now to play with behind, and I can begin to fight with this Brownie SV in the McLaren for the last 2 laps and not worry too much about having to defend. That isn't too big a gap though. If you start fighting for the entire lap, then that 3 seconds can come down quite quickly, so we do need to be careful about how we start fighting. So 2 laps left to go. The front right is well, half of its life is depleted already. It's going to be very difficult from now on. But then again, I don't know how bad the tyre wear is on the McLaren, presuming that it's also wearing out a similar rate. Not all the cars are the same though. Some cars deal with this a lot better. So that Cayman behind. Cayman's very good on handling. I'm presuming that the tyre wear is very good as well. So through the S's, I've been dropped slightly, half a second behind, still within the slipstream range, which is good. The GTR, I need to really make the most. You see exactly, I'm just trying to follow him exactly right behind him, just to absolutely maximise. So from the end of the S's into this corner, I've gained like 3 tenths just as a result of going in quite aggressively into the turn, but also from slipstreaming. So it's free speed, you might as well make the most of it. As we come over the crest, for the penultimate time. Just one more time left after this. Braking point getting a little bit earlier, turning in a lot earlier this time, just to really negate that tyre wear and the lack of grip. So getting really close here, well within the slipstream range. We're getting pulled along, getting sucked along into very close overtaking range. Up the inside is the move there. I did overtake someone this way earlier, and on the exit I'm just going to run him out as wide as possible, give him just about a car length, hold the car very narrow, and he decides to bail out. I've just about kept the position, so hard, fair racing between the two of us. We've had a couple of moments in this race where it's got very, very close indeed. I think it's just about being well, not just about, it has been very respectful throughout. So very close, hard, fair racing. And in fact, Brownie SV was in the Red Bull Ring 100 laps, and he finished well ahead of me. So I know that this guy is very quick. So just keep to the left-hand side, trying to minimise his slipstream now as we come down the main straight to begin the final lap. So one more time left around the circuit. 7th place is on here. I don't think I'll be able to get anything higher than that unless the guys ahead have a massive penalty. I don't think that's quite the case. So it's going to be a defensive fight for one more lap for 7th place. I also have to consider the fuel. So we've got the text of death blocking my view, which is still something they need to patch or just get rid of or be able to turn off. A customisable HUD would be very, very useful indeed, because I think it is sometimes a bit overkill. So you can see us struggling for grip so deep into this turn. We can cut back for a late apex and definitely avoid the grass on the outside. So he's going to look for the move. I'm going to move slightly defensive just to make him really think twice about going up the inside, and he thinks better of it. Probably the right decision. He can live to fight another day up into a better overtaking opportunity over this crest to the right into the hairpin, where he could presumably go up the inside. The Cayman now beginning to bear down on both of us, so we can't really afford to fight too much. We might lose even more positions. So taking this corner really nice, actually, getting quite close to the apex, driving quite well at this point here. So the McLaren very close, less than a quarter of a second behind, less than 2 tenths now, into the fast right, into the kink, over the curb as much as possible. Will I have to go defensive into the final turn? I don't think I will. He's about 3 tenths behind, which isn't quite within range. A little bit deep into the turn. I've only got 1% of fuel left and 0% fuel left now as we come onto the main straight. Am I going to be able to keep 7th, get rid of this penalty and not run out of fuel? I've actually run out of fuel as we go up to the line, and I've just about got the job done. I could not have timed that any more perfectly. I ran out of fuel about 200 metres before the line, managed to roll and get rid of the penalty and not lose a position. And you can see there about 3 people finishing within a second of me. So that, you know, if I had timed that a little bit worse, I could have easily been 10th instead of 7th. So in the end, an exhilarating race, one of my best performances in a while. So really, really pleased with that, and a really good, close, hard-fought race ultimately. And here's my position: 134th in the world as it stands here, with my best result to date. That was my best result in manufacturers. I just want to say again a massive thank you for 100,000 subscribers. Sometimes I just can't believe there's that many people who like these videos. But again, thank you so much for tuning in regularly, and all your messages in everywhere, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, and Discord, wherever you may have sent a message. But thank you for all of those, and do hope you enjoyed this video. Do let me know your thoughts if you did enjoy it, and if you're new to the channel, then consider subscribing. Let's get on that road to 100 million subscribers now. Why not? But yeah, that's the end. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you next time. Goodbye.
Listen.